Study Session 6, St. Thomas Aquinas, Introduction. In this lecture, we will learn about Aquinas, who was an eminent philosopher and theologian, but mainly a theologian, because of his religious background. He was greatly influenced by the works of Aristotle, had an in-depth study of Aristotle's works. As an expert on Aristotle's philosophy, he developed and interpreted the ideas of Aristotle in his own ways. Just as some of the works of Aristotle were controversial, some of his views were in conflict with the teachings of the Catholic Church. For instance, his notion that the soul does not survive the body and that the world had not been created but was eternal. Despite this, Aquinas attempted to reconcile the Catholic theology with the philosophy of Aristotle and was majorly concerned with eliminating the relationship between faith and reason. In other words, between theology and philosophy. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to state why St. Aquinas is referred to as the angelic doctor. Describe the great achievement of St. Thomas Aquinas. State how St. Aquinas disagreed with the idea of Bonaventure. Describe who Aquinas regarded as the absolute being. St. Thomas Aquinas' background and education. St. Thomas Aquinas, 1224 to 1274, was born near Naples in Italy into a noble Italian family. He is considered by many to have been the greatest philosopher of the medieval epoch. As early as 5 years, he began his studies in a Benedictine monastery and later attended the University of Naples, where he studied philosophy. However, Aquinas in 1244 entered the Dominican order, but this was a disappointment to his family, who wished to see him becoming a Benedictine monk, a vocation that was prestigious during his time. He studied under Albert the Great, another great medieval philosopher, for 4 years in Cologne. Aquinas proved himself a distinguished and outstanding student, and consequently Albert the Great sent him to the University of Paris in 1252, where he became a lecturer in theology department. Following his dedication and zeal, he became a full member of the faculty in 1257, where he continued to teach until 1259. Aquinas lectured on philosophy and theology at various Dominican monasteries around Rome for the next 9 years, but returned to the University of Paris in 1268. Nevertheless, he returned to Italy in 1272 and taught at the University of Naples before his health began to fail in 1273. And sequel to his frail health, he died in March of 1274. Aquinas, no doubt, was a prolific writer. He began his writings in Paris in 1252. His works consist of various lengthy theological treatises, commentaries on the works of others, disputations on theological and philosophical issues, as well as other numerous short works. But then, his most vital works are the two summas, the Summa Contra Gentiles and the Summa Theologica. Others, from its philosophical point of view, are his De Essentientia, Essentia, De Malo, De Veritate, De Unitate Intellectus Contra Averroista, as well as his numerous commentaries on the works of Aristotle. Note should be taken from the fact that in some of his works, he presents his ideas in form of questions, which are divided into articles, and each article asks a question, which is followed by various objections representing the views of other scholars, and followed in turn by his own idea of the issue under discussion. Then he replies to the initial objections. Some major influences on St. Aquinas. Aquinas' works shows the influence of a number of other philosophers, among whom are Plato, Augustine, the Islamic philosophers Avicenna and Averroes, as well as Maimonides, the great Jewish philosopher. Aquinas was an eminent philosopher and theologian, but mainly a theologian. Because of his religious background, he was greatly influenced by the works of Aristotle. Hence, he had an in-depth study of Aristotle's works. As an expert of Aristotle's philosophy, he developed and interpreted the idea of Aristotle in his own ways. Some of the works of Aristotle were controversial, and as well, some of his views were in conflict with the teachings of the Catholic Church. For instance, his notion that the soul does not survive the body and that the world had not been created but was eternal. Despite these, Aquinas attempted to reconcile the Catholic theology with the philosophy of Aristotle and was majorly concerned with eliminating the relationship between faith and reason. In other words, between theology and philosophy. Aquinas is not saying that all articles of faith were demonstrable with reason, but he thought many were. Therefore, he tried to show the dictates of reason as represented by Aristotle and those of faith were compatible in the areas in which they intersect, even though his views were not readily accepted in his days, because of the large challenge they posed to the already established Augustinian theology. He later became the official theologian of the Catholic Church, the angelic doctor, and he remains so till date. Philosophical theological achievements of Aquinas. The great achievement of St. Thomas Aquinas was that he brought together into a formidable synthesis the insights of classical philosophy and Christian theology, specifically Christianizing the philosophy of Aristotle. Having said this, we shall now look at the various ideas of Aquinas. In Thomistic metaphysics, Aquinas, just like Aristotle, explains change in terms of 10 categories, made up of substance and 9 accidents, maintaining that a change may be either a substantial change or an accidental change. He believes that in a substantial change, the substance of a thing is completely changed to another substance. For example, when a wood is burnt, it eventually changes to another substance, ashes. But then, when the wood is used to form a table, for instance, the wood undergoes an accidental change. For Aquinas, the 9 accidents are quantity, quality, relation, place, time, position, state, action, and passion. Hence, the above are 9 ways in which we can talk of substance, and so there are 9 ways in which a substance can undergo change or alteration. Nevertheless, when a substantial change takes place, something undergoes the change from one substance to another, and this is responsible for the continuity between the two substances, and this is the prime matter, which is pure potentiality. That is to say that prime matter is the potentiality to receive different new forms. Put in other words, that is the potentiality to become anything. Prime matter cannot exist on its own, but can only exist with a substantial form, which is that which makes a thing what it is. We should equally note that prime matter and substantial form cannot be separated, as none can exist without the other. Prime matter is not determinate, it is totally indeterminate, as it is just the potentiality to receive any form. Hence, it is only the substantial form that makes a thing what it is, a particular kind of thing. But it does not make a thing an individual thing, and so the principle of individuation, according to Aquinas, is prime matter assigned by quantity, that is, prime matter in need of matter and form. Aquinas did not agree with Bonaventure's idea that both material and spiritual things or beings are composed of matter and form, but he maintained that matter and form are compositions of only material things or beings, while spiritual beings like angels are not composed of matter and form. but are pure form without matter. This doctrine, however, is known as hylemorphism, which could be traced back to the thoughts of Aristotle. This doctrine raised questions on the existence of angels, but Aquinas holds that the existence of angels could be proved and feels that the hierarchy of beings would not be complete until we agree on the existence of angels, which will subsequently bridge the gap between human beings and God. In the hierarchy of being, we have inanimate organic beings, which are the lowest kind of beings, followed by organic beings, that is, sensory beings, which are animals higher on scale, and higher still are the human beings, who are rational corporeal beings. Then, at the top of this hierarchy, we have God, who is the absolute being, pure act without matter or potency. Aquinas went further to opine that the gap between man, the spiritual corporeal being, and the infinite spirit, God, is such that we have to definitely suppose that there exist other beings higher than the man, but finite spirits without matter. And he calls these angels. Hence, following the above, he gave a rational basis for the Christian belief in angels. For Aquinas, in all finite beings, essence and existence are not the same. Thus, they are not identical. The essence and existence of finite beings are distinct, for they all receive their existence from outside, and because of that, they are not necessary beings. He holds that it is only in God that essence and existence are identical, since he is the necessary being whose very essence evolves existence. Therefore, all finite beings are contingent beings. Their existence is not necessary, since their essence does not involve existence. The essence of a being is that which makes it what it is, different from other kinds of things or beings. Study session summary. In this study, we learned that Aquinas tried to show that the dictates of reason, as represented by Aristotle, and those of faith were compatible in the areas in which they intersect. 2. His great achievement lies in the fact that he brought together into a formidable synthesis the insights of classical philosophy and Christian theology. 3. Furthermore, in his potency and act doctrine, Aquinas maintains that any being that is subject to change, that is, any being that is subject to development or improvement, is made up of potency and act. And lastly, even though his views were not readily accepted in his days, because of the large challenge they posed to the already established Augustinian theology, he later became the official theologian of the Catholic Church. End of study session 6. Thank you for listening.